Kia ora. Welcome to Conversations with Wahine, brought to you by the Wellington branch of the National Council of Women, New Zealand. Can you leave us with the most memorable, surprising, or funny moment you've experienced in Parliament thus far? And bonus points if it's funny.
Well, mine's an embarrassing moment. I certainly amused my own kids by in Parliament one day I meant to ask a very serious question of the Finance Minister, which was to ask him how big the fiscal financial hole in the government's books was. And in an attempt to achieve brevity, I ended up spitting out, how big is his hole? I am eternally grateful that my colleagues across the Parliament saw the lighter side of that and had a good laugh. I then, of course, got the giggles, took quite some time to get myself together and correct course. And not only did I come home that night to a 13-year-old who said, how big is your hole? But I've since met a lot of teenagers who know me only as the hole lady.
It might have been embarrassing, but it sounds like it was worth it for comic effect.
Do you know, I should have thought about the answer to this because the funny ones are not repeatable. Yeah, I tell you a funny one.
And of course, we're dying to know now.
You can leave the names out of that.
I'm not going to sleep tonight.
But yeah, no, it was really funny. Like we've had a couple of people that I shan't name send through messages on our caucus, like our whole caucus signal chat, so from the Prime Minister all the way to me, you know, it's like send messages that were not intended for caucus. It's like, you know, that's you know, that was one funny thing. I had
we've all done that though, haven't we?
Well, no,
not caucus, but I mean like not caucus.
Sending a text to the wrong person.
We've all sent a text to the wrong person that's kind of not put us in a good light with that person, and you know, yeah.
So some you know, there are some messages though that you need to just look twice at before you press send. Let's just leave it at that. So yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Also interesting for the people that didn't see it because you know, got deleted so quickly.
Oh, and then wondering.
And everybody was like, and also interestingly, like nobody would tell. Like it was actually very sweet. It's like a very close knit and loyal caucus.
Oh,
yeah, no, honestly, serious. So that was funny. Another funny thing. So they're all coming now. So another funny thing was the first time I was in caucus. So we, you know, first caucus meeting. So I had won the seat unexpectedly for many people, and including me. On the Tuesday morning, we had our first caucus meeting, and we all, you know, little shiny, bright-eyed, into caucus, sitting there, all very excited and all very new and all very wide-eyed, and sitting there going, "Oh my goodness! Right, okay, this is real, right? This is neat." And we all had us newbies had to stand up, and they were like, "Oh, Sarah," and she went behind them. It's like, "Woo!" And so I stood up, and I just went, "Oh my gosh! I forgot to tell work that I wasn't coming on Monday." Except I didn't say, "Oh my gosh," I swore. And so pretty much the first thing that I did, like to caucus, was I stood up and I said a swear, and then I went, I completely forgot to hand in my notice, tell them I wasn't coming. They were expecting me at work on Monday morning, and I was there doing the Wellington thing. And Jacinda, like Prime Minister, then looked at me and she said, "I think they noticed, Sarah." I was just, okay, fair enough. Like,
you know, I did things that I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined doing, like breastfeeding in the debating chamber. But having my son in the debating chamber also meant that from time to time he would get a little bit vocal. And I remember one time Ian McKelvey was speaking and Flynn decided to really go for it. Ian did a point of order to the speaker saying that he was being unreasonably interjected while speaking. So it was definitely an interesting learning curve. I'd also take him into caucus for breastfeeding as well. And a couple of times he would interrupt the Prime Minister or the Minister of Finance. Or it's sort of just,
Can you both leave us with either the most funny or the most memorable moments in your career thus far?
Yeah, I have a funny moment. The Trade Minister, Damien O'Connor, came to caucus one day and he said, you guys have all got to try walking up Lambton Quay with a huge smile on your face, see what response it gets you. And we're all laughing at this, right? No one's actually going to walk up Lambton Quay with a big smile plastered on their face and look at everyone, because every public servant's got their like headphones in and their heads down. Guess who does it? It's Ibrahim Omer. Straight, huge smile on his face. Everyone's like, oh no, you're not my friend. Hi, oh no, I don't know you actually. And this guy is rocking it. You've got to see this man in action. Next time you see him on the street with a huge smile on his face, you know that it was because Damien O'Connor told him to do it.
Oh, that's great.
I remember that day. To me, thanks for reminding me, Arina. For me, one day we were celebrating Eid event here in Parliament, and Jacinda was coming for a very short period of time because she had other commitments. She came with Grant. She took her seat, and the MC introduced Jacinda. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is joining us, blah, blah, blah. And when he introduced me, he said, "The Right Honourable Ibrahim Omer."
Awesome.
He's from migrant background. He doesn't know the differences. All he sees. So that was a funny moment.
Okay, so I did check with the individual about this just to make sure it was okay for me to say it. But probably the funniest thing that I had in the term or happened was Ibrahim Omer. He's a good mate of mine. We are in the office next to each other. We're both in the class of 2020 or with Rachel as well. And we've become really good mates. But he was fasting during Ramadan, and it was during a stage of urgency within the house. We were doing extended hours, and he hadn't eaten all day. And we were in the house on house duty, and he fell asleep next to me. and the Deputy Prime Minister was talking. She was on the front bench, and you could see Ibrahim catching some Z's asleep. And I get this text message from one of my friends who was watching Parliament TV. Hey, do you know Ibrahim next to he's been sleeping for the last 5 minutes? And so it was a clandestine kind of elbow nudge. Hey man, you gotta wake up, So we have a lot of laughs about that, but that's kind of one of those memories that stuck out from this term. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. We actually interviewed him not too long ago. He's really cool.
He's an awesome bloke.
Bloke. Yeah, he's cool. What about you, Rachel?
Oh, well, the most recent one would be yesterday when I had the Prime Minister was in Dunedin and we went to a student flat, and some student flats in Dunedin have names, and the name of the student flat was the Love Shack, as in the song, presumably. And then we had a media stand-up afterwards, and all the journalists were like, "Oh, so what did you think of the student flat, and what do you think of the Love Shack?" And then he started going, "Oh yes, well it brought back some like fond memories." All I go, "Oh, I want to think about that." And but I didn't say anything. But my colleague Ingrid Leary, who was on the other side of him, she must have sniggered. It was just like, I heard that snicker. Anyway, it was all just a bit like sort of funny because it was called the Love Shack and he was having some memories, but also a little bit like thinking about your parents or something. It's like,
I've now been an MP for 7 years, and I think quite possibly the thing that I'm actually the most well known for in my community of Mount Roskill is that in my very first campaign to be the MP here in 2016, I managed to get McDonald's on Stoddard Road to fix a slushy machine. For me, kind of, and I reflect on sort of some of the weighty topics that I focus on myself sometimes, and actually a lot of people say, "Oh, you're the guy that did that," including quite a few journalists now. I used to come from Mount Roskill, so that was quite grounding for me. The things that people focus on, and maybe the things that people don't focus on so much when you're in these kinds of jobs.
Look, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to be saying this, but I will, and the colleague will remain nameless, although
even better.
Well, it's in Hansard's and on parliamentary TV. So often late at night, things get quite a lot more relaxed in the House. And a dear colleague of ours was talking about some of our policy work around extending the age for free mammograms. Now, mammograms are quite a different word to get around. Chris is making a face at me. Perhaps I should be stopping right now.
No, you're right.
But
no, you're good.
Colleague,
I know what you're going to say, yeah.
You're remembering it. And a colleague had 4 or 5 goes. He called them memories and mammons and mammals and mammographies. And in the finish, he was just about beside himself, and he just put his hands in front of his chest, which would have been not so bad, but he kept turning them like a doorknob, and we were all in hysterics over it. So the thing was all quite sensible. It was talking about us extending mammograms for older women, and a very good thing to be talking about. He just couldn't get the word out.
What about you, Chris?
Well, I can't top that, but there was a rather nice moment at the final select committee that Nick Smith attended, and he brought in muffins for the fellow members of the select committee, being MPs from across the different parties, and no doubt shared with the staffers as well. But the reason this was quite funny was because it referenced a story that Nick had told the select committee previously about how, when he was environment minister, some environmental activists, as a sort of a form of protest, had made some muffins for Nick and presented them to him, and he duly appreciated in the way that you would have presented with ostensibly very edible, tasty food. And you may be able to see where I'm going with this, but suffice to say they had a non-standard ingredient in them, and the ones that had been given to Nick by this protest group, I hasten to add, and I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't chocolate, and so Nick replicated this with muffins, except to say he used something that you would actually find in the Edmonds cookbook, for example. So everyone sort of had a good old laugh at it's sort of at his expense, but it was a self-deprecating thing that he did to mark his final occasion of being on a select committee and to reminisce about some of the tougher times for the National Party former Minister of the Environment.
Watching the National Party members in the Finance and Expenditure Committee continue to struggle for months and months, distinguishing Anna Lork, Helen White and myself from each other, because we're all 3 Pākehā blonde women.
I went to a fun quiz night in the electorate of Rongotai, which our colleague Paul Eagle has been the MP for the last 6 years, and it was a funny, light-hearted debate. And our sister, our Tongan MP Anahela Kanongata'a, she was there on our debating team. I can't even remember what we were arguing about, but she got up and she was terrible. And usually a really great debater, but on this night she was having a terrible night. And Paul and I were just looking at each other the whole time, going, "Tell her to sit down. Tell her, can she please sit down? Can the Labour person on the debating team please sit down? Enoho." And actually it became the kind of laughing joke amongst the crowd. I think at some point she talked about Tongans eating dogs and eating people that disagreed with them. A little bit crazy. And anyway, there was a lot of laughter, obviously a little bit of beer and wine flowing around too. But that's a moment where I think I left the evening with the stitch, that you get when you laugh too much.
And then I met some very famous people. Was Hillary Clinton, and that was interesting because she arrived at the military end of the Wellington Airport. I think she was due at 5:30 or 6 in the morning or something, and it was a fantastic summer day. It was mid or late November. And so I just hopped on my bicycle from Island Bay to the airport. It's not terribly far. It was a lovely day. And I got a suit on and probably had a pair of bike shorts under the suit, but I was perfectly smartly dressed, turned up, put the bike to one side and really thought nothing of it because that's how I got around a lot. Turned up, met this woman who is she's quite tiny, but very charismatic, and exchanged about 2 or 3 sentences. And this was probably, this would have been within maybe 2 months of being elected as mayor. So I was still finding my way. So it was quite, I was quite nervous of meeting her, but, it all went very well. And I suggested she walked along the waterfront if she could persuade her bodyguard, and they let her walk along the waterfront, which is nice. But what hit the news was one of the journalists had seen me arrive on my bike. So the headlines were, Mayor cycles to meet Secretary of State. And, I could imagine everyone was thinking that I would have been wearing lycra and all sweaty and all that. And of course I wasn't. I was very respectful of any foreign dignitary. And that was very funny. And apparently it made the top 10 cycling stories in the States that year.
I remember once, I'm going to throw Erica under the bus here, literally. I was up in Auckland with Erica doing some education meetings. Erica Stanford, our education spokesperson, and we came out of a car park and wrongly went into a bus lane. And it was just like gridlocked traffic. And we were sitting there in her branded car with her face all over the side, like trapped in this bus lane as everyone really judgmentally looked at us. And then I kind of comically hid. But once I comically hid, I thought, oh, now it's going to look really weird if I pop back up because it's going to look like I was hiding. And it was actually just a joke. So then I ended up kind of like trapped in this comically hid position in the branded car in the bus lane. So, I remember that quite vividly. I also remember recently we were out in an event right out the back of one of the rural parts of Rimutaka doing a dinner with some local community members, and we went out and a member of my team went to start the car and it was just totally dead, and the community being so hospitable, we didn't want to go wake them up for like this dead car. So in the end we ended up driving all around Upper Hutt at like 11:45 at night, trying to find a set of jumper leads, which we eventually got through the kind of bin that the petrol guys have for after hours. And they like shoved it through where you normally get ice creams and pay. So we dragged these jumper leads out, went all the way back and started trying to get this car started at like 12:30 in the morning. It was just bizarre. There was no power, so we were like shining our phones around. I've never jump started a car, but it's now a skill that I have, along with building hoardings that I didn't know was an essential campaigning skill. But many stories from the campaign.
I really think that bus lane story is very good.
Sorry to Erica. Sorry for bringing her embarrassing story into my memory of the campaign. I'm sure it's all good.
But I can just imagine the people being like, oh my God, the audacity.
I know. My greatest fear is really driving my branded car around with my face in the electorate. Where do you park it? Is it parked correctly? What's the time? I mean, we should have these behaviours all the time, but I dread the thought of photos of my car poorly parked or being towed away, being shared online. It's like the ultimate ID tag. When the signs first got put up, there was the odd one that had kind of the eyes cut out, but weirdly, I think the eyes kind of draws people's attention as well because the light shines through. It's kind of Star Wars-esque from behind.
What's the word? Defacing of boards, eh? Like you get called all sorts of names and epithets get written on the boards. And in the first by-election that I was in, I had to basically, I will sell your water was written all over my boards. I will sell your water. I was like, okay, it's already been sold in bottles around the world. So, you have all these funny things that happen with boards. Sometimes it's pretty tragic and sad, but you get face painted and a few moustaches and a bit of hair. I wish I could have that.
Of course, I need to get some Ray-Bans, like.
Oh, yeah. Like there was what Scott Sheeran had the I'm Ed Sheeran, and someone replaced him with Ed Sheeran on his poster in Central. That was quite funny.
There was a bill being discussed around police dogs, and I remember that it was a bill that was not based on evidence. It's about giving higher penalties for people who were having who may have attacked police dogs, and I remember calling them attack dogs in the house. And Judith Collins and Simeon Brown got really, really upset that I called police dogs attack dogs, and they kind of felt like there was this huge attack on the police workforce, when actually a lot of that was what the dogs got trained to do. And so what that led to is having a picture of on my door being called spokesperson for dogs, because now I passed a bill relating to disability assist dogs, and I've had all these random media stories that are dog related. And so I just think that's one of the probably more random things that have happened over time.
I miss this, but this does sound like extreme scandal and unbelievable.
Just Google attack dog Ricardo and then you'll find it.